So I had a brew. I also have a chocolate spread sandwich because I had some bread to use up. So I thought I'd try something a little bit different. It's something I've been trying to do for a while. I thought I was going to try and do ages ago, and I've decided against it because it wasn't relevant to what I usually do on my channel. So I was like, well, let's not bother with it then. Let's ignore it. And then I was having a conversation on Skype with Evernux and TD90UK. Both people, really good guys. Anyway, you should go and follow them on Twitter. I'll put a link in the description below of their handles. But they were talking about knives, and they were looking at getting some knives, and it's quite an interesting of them. And it's quite it's something that I'm quite interested in. It's kind of not necessarily a passion, but something that I'm kind of into, quote unquote, I suppose. But I wanted to, so I thought, well, maybe I'll just have a go at it, see what people think. If you think it's shit, just we'll ignore it, we'll forget it ever happened. If you think it's really good, then maybe I'll do some more stuff. I was actually going to do this on Dartmoor because it's a glorious day outside. It's like 20 degrees outside. I was going to do this in Dartmoor, and then I was talking to Jace, who's Evernux on Twitter, and he said, well, what's the point? And I said, well, because it's a different background. And I was like, well, actually, I can't be effed to go out there because I'd have to take a tripod and camera and everything else. So I didn't bother. I'm actually in my room, which isn't quite the same. But anyway, first things first, we'll talk about the laws governing knives, specifically in the UK, and then, because I think I need to protect my ass more than anything else, and then we'll actually go into what I have and some maybe advice and guidance on it, and then go from there. I suppose the only thing I need to say is that if you don't already know, I'm a scout leader, and that's kind of the reason that I'm into knives and that I find them quite interesting, and because I do a lot of some of the stuff I try and do is education with young people, making sure they're using knives for the correct purposes, not using knives as weapons, but using them as tools, which is what they're intended for. And so as part of that, it's a lot about education. So I'm going to try and, well, to cover my own ass more than anything, I'm going to cover the laws of it, because it's kind of a bit of a, it's something everybody should really know, because it's not difficult, but some of it's a bit of a grey area. So I wanted to cover that, and then we'll actually go into what I actually physically have, and then go from there. So knife law in the UK is a very grey area, really, because it all depends on who arrests you and what a jury of your peers decide. So we'll go through what actually is definite and what is a bit flowery, and we'll go from there. So it's illegal to sell a knife of any kind, including cutlery or kitchen knives, to anyone under 18. So if you're under the age of 18, you cannot physically buy one. You'll have to, well, either someone else has to buy you one, there's like a present or something, which is perfectly fine. You can carry one. That's not a problem. You can own one as an under 18. You just cannot buy one. It's illegal to carry a knife in public without good reason, unless it's a knife with a folding blade 3 inches long or 7.62 centimeters or less, e.g. a Swiss Army knife. Now, this isn't necessarily true anymore, because a lot of Swiss Army knives are lock knives. Now, lock knives are basically a knife that when you fold it out, it locks in place, so you can't fold it back in unless you use a mechanism to release the knife and fold it back in, and that doesn't count for and that you're not allowed to have one of those, and most knives now are lock knives. So but without good reason is the flowery subject, and the government has cited a few examples here which kind of, I suppose, are relevant, and the examples of good reasons for carrying a knife are taking knives to use at work and from work, taking knives to a gallery or museum, a knife going to be used in theatre, film, television, historical reenactment or religious purposes. And a court will decide if you have good reason to carry a knife if you're charged with carrying it illegally. So, and that also, transportation as well. So if you're buying a knife to transport to your private property, that's also acceptable. But that is kind of is the flowery subject. First of all, it would be down to whether or not an officer stopped you, searched you, found a knife, and then deemed it necessary to arrest you because you were carrying it illegally. And then once that had happened, you would charge. It would then go to court, and then the court would have to decide as to whether or not you didn't have a good reason to carry it. And so a jury of peers would have to decide, which I suppose is kind of quite good. It means that you're not necessarily just going to be locked up just for no real reason. But yeah, that's kind of that, really. It's illegal to carry, buy, or sell any type of banned knife, and there's a list of banned knives which I will go through in a minute. And it's also illegal to use a knife in a threatening way, even a legal knife, such as a Swiss Army knife. So no matter what knife it is, if you use it in a threatening way, that is completely and utterly illegal. It also then goes on to say that lock knives with blades that can be locked when unfolded, are not folding knives and are illegal to carry in public. And the maximum penalty for an adult carrying a knife is 4 years in prison and a fine of £5,000. Which actually, to be fair, I don't think it's that much of a big deal. I mean, of course, you don't want to be in prison, but 4 years is not that much considering if you're carrying it illegally and carrying it for the purpose of essentially trying to maim somebody. 4 years isn't really that much in prison. Examples of knives that are illegal is not an exhaustive list, and what you need to do if you're really concerned about it, go and talk to your local police station. And ask them whether or not the knife that you're either looking to buy or you carry regularly is a knife you can legally carry or legally buy, and they should be able to advise you on it, because it depends on localities and stuff like that and what their local policies are and things like this. So knives that are illegal are flick knives, also called switchblades or automatic knives, where the blade is hidden inside the handle and shoots out when the button is pressed. That's not a ballistic knife where the blade shoots off and shoots somebody in the neck. But if it looks like if you hold it against someone's skin and you press a button, it goes into them, basically. Butterfly knives as well, not completely illegal. The blade is hidden inside a handle that splits into two, like wings. The handles swing around the blade to open or close it. Now, I think that is a little bit of a grey area, because I'm pretty sure you can have one, but you have to have either a permit or something like that, or again, a reason to have one. So for maybe theatre or something like that, or maybe you've got like a skill or something, you can use them properly. Disguised knives where the blade is hidden inside a belt buckle or a fake mobile phone, for instance, which is fair enough. Gravity knives, sword sticks, samurai swords, and there's a bit of an exception there as well. Handle foot claws, push daggers, a hollow kabutan, which is apparently a cylinder-shaped keychain holding spikes, and there's a load of foreign ones which I'm not even going to try and pronounce. But basically, use your common sense and ask your local police station if you're not too sure. But anyway, so let's a little bit of discussion of the law in the UK then. So it is a bit of a grey area, and the good reason for carrying a knife is very grey. And if the police stop you, they have the power to stop and search you, but they have to have reasonable. They have to have a reasonable reason why they've stopped you and why they want to search you. Essentially, as long as you're not a dickhead, you can get away with it. So, for instance, if you're a chav and you decide you want to carry a knife just dangling a little bit above your penis, which a lot of them seem to try and do, which is just weird, like they have them they're just tucked into their belt or something stupid like that, and you get stopped by the police, and you look like a bit of a dickhead, and you start gobbing off, chances are you'll be arrested and put to court, and then they'll find that actually you did not have a good reason to carry a knife. That's the very extreme end of the spectrum. Same if you had like a combat knife strapped to your leg. That's probably not a good idea. But if you have it in your bag and you don't start mouthing, shouting off and gobbing off and shouting the odds when if the police stop you for any reason, just have a chat, then there's fine. You won't have any problems with it. And that's that. It's the same even if they have reasonable excuse to search you. If they search you and they find a knife on you, the arresting officer has to make a decision as to whether or not you have good reason. If they decide that you don't have a good reason, they can arrest you, and then they can charge you with an offence. And then they'll take you to court, and then the court will decide as to whether or not the weapon or the knife you're carrying, or whether or not you've got good reason to carry that knife. So, for instance, if I was a builder, for instance, and I had a Stanley knife, which is a lock knife because it rolls up and it just doesn't move generally. Chances are the arresting officer, you wouldn't get arrested because to be honest, you might have it in your pocket maybe, but as long as if the police stop you for a good reason and say, have you got anything on you shouldn't have, and you say to them, I've got a Stanley knife in my pocket because I'm a builder, chances are you'll be fine. It's the same as if you're maybe on Dartmoor or you're out doing some activity in the wilderness, I suppose, and you have a knife for those sorts of purposes, so literally just for the purposes of using it as a tool, and you get stopped with the police, which is very unlikely in the middle of like Dartmoor, for instance, you'll again be absolutely fine. So yeah, it's kind of a grey area, but basically, the key rule for it is, if you have to have a good reason, so not because I think I have a good reason, you have to have a good reason to carry one. So if you're carrying one for no good reason, then there's no reason for you to carry one, is there? I mean, unless you want to be quote unquote cool, but then it's not cool to be arrested and put into prison. Well, I don't know, is it? I don't know. Maybe it is in certain circles to be put into prison. But and also the other thing is to make sure you don't carry a knife that looks really threatening. So because if it goes to court, the jury will think, if it's a knife that looks really, really threatening, the jury will think that because it looks threatening, you're carrying it for the purposes of using it as a weapon as opposed to a tool. So let's actually get into the knives that I actually own, because that's kind of what I wanted to do this for. So this is kind of the first, I think the first, no, not my first proper knife that I ever bought, but one of the knives that was the first I kind of used on a daily basis. It's a cheap, shitty, it's a Sealy, I think it's a Sealy maker. I will put a link in the description below where you can get it. It's a really nice little knife, actually. It's stainless steel, and the blade's really, really sharp, and it's tiny. Again, it's illegal to carry because it's got a locking mechanism, so I could not carry this without good reason in public. But there is actual. I'm just trying to think what the actual website's called now. Heaney's Hayes or something like that. I'll put a link in the description below where you can buy some UK legal carry knives. So if you just want to carry a knife every day without having to have a good reason to carry a knife every day, there's some really good knives there. But this wouldn't really be called a legal carry knife, mainly for the fact that it's got a locking mechanism. But it's a really good little knife. And then we're moving up to things like a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. And as I was saying before, these are not legal carry because they've got lock on. That little mechanism there has got a little, if my camera will focus, it's got a little locking mechanism on there. Is it actually going to focus? No, it isn't. Little locking mechanism on there, so that that is not a UK legal carry. This actually just so happens to be an official scouting knife because it was not cheaper. I got this for 10 quid cheaper than if I was to buy it commercially from, I don't know, any shop. And then we get into some really cool knives which I really recommend. I'm going to get some hate for having a Bear Grylls knife, but I don't care. This thing is a really, really good knife. I didn't buy it for the fact that it had Bear Grylls written on it, because it doesn't matter. I don't give a shit about the fact that it's got Bear Grylls written on it. What I do care about the fact is that it's a really good knife. It's got a serrated edge. Now, a lot of people don't like serrated edges for good reason, for the fact that really they don't really cut very well, and they're a bastard to sharpen, which is very true. They are very, very difficult to sharpen, but I like to have a serrated edge just in case I need to be able to use a serrated edge, something like maybe if I need to chop up some wood or something like that. Again, this is probably just slightly over length, and it also is a lock knife, so I couldn't legally carry this unless I had a valid reason to. And because I'm a scout leader, I can get away with carrying stuff, assuming I'm not acting like an idiot about it, and if I get stopped with the police I can show them my warrant and say, well, this is the reason why I'm carrying a knife. But generally I don't carry a knife with me every day because I don't need to. The only times I ever carry a knife is if I need to, so maybe if I'm going to a camp or maybe I'm going out to Dartmoor or something like that, I will definitely, I'll carry one. Now this is one I recommend everybody just goes out and buys because it's so cheap. It's just you might as well just buy it. It's a Macroniv Companion MG. They make two different versions. There's a carbon steel one and there's a stainless steel one. Obviously you want to get the carbon steel one because it's better. Stainless steel obviously doesn't stain, but it's a bastard to sharpen and generally not as good. This just so happens to be a Ray Mears knife because it was sold through Ray Mears, the Ray Mears website, and it was cheap. It was cheaper to get it through there than it was to get it through Macroniv directly, so I bought it through there, and they've put Ray Mears on it, which I don't give a shit. It's got Ray Mears on it. It's a bloody good knife. It's really cheap. It's like 10 quid, and it kind of feels a little bit like a kitchen knife, but the blade's really strong. It doesn't bend that easily. It comes with a sheath. It's really, really sharp, and it's just a really good knife to sort of carry it, like you can have it on your waist. And like, this is the one I generally carry if I go camping or stuff like that. I'll just chuck this in the bag because it's so light. It's just it's really good. And then the last knife, which is probably the one that I like the most, is my Gerber LMF2, and this bad boy is a combat knife. It cost me quite a bit of money, and it's a bastard to get out the sheath, which is probably not what you want in a combat situation. But yes, this you may or may not get away with carrying in the public for quote-unquote good reason. If this went to court and the jury saw this, now if they might think that actually you're carrying this because you want to go and kill somebody. It's a very good knife. This is, if you've got the money, go out and buy one. It's a Gerber LMF2. I'll put a link in the description below of where you can maybe possibly pick up one. It's made in Portland, Oregon, USA, and it's an insanely good knife. If you see, there's loads of reviews on YouTube for this knife, and in actual fact, I think I need to give this a bit of a sharpen. But no, it's really good, really well balanced. It's not light. That's the only trouble with it. It's really well balanced. It's got things like a striking end on here, so you can strike glass and stuff like that, and hammer in shit. And it's also got holes for tying it to a pole, which is quite good. So if you want to use it as a spear or something like that. But I have to say, I think the thing that sells it for me really is the fact that it's got a sheath with it, which is quite good. And with the sheath, you get a sharpening implement in there as well, which is quite good. And you can also strap this to a molly vest if you're a proper military type, or you can strap it to your waist or your ankle or something like that if you really want to. Again, probably not a good idea in public, but maybe if you're at a camp or something like that and it's out of the way, you can get away with doing that. I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. There's not really much more to go into it. I don't think this video has been quite as good as I hoped, really. But I'll put a link in the description below of the thing on Reddit, which is knife porn. That's got some really, really good stuff. There's some really sweet stuff kicking around there. But basically, I think really what you need to be worrying about is the law, really. Just make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position where that you can be arrested. And if you are going to be arrested because of arrogant policing, which can sometimes happen, I'm not going to slag off the police because they do generally do a good job, but sometimes they do take the piss a little bit. If you go to court and you just make sure that you're not going to take something that would look like you're carrying it for the purpose of killing somebody, and then you're good to go. And I think that's pretty much it, really. I think I've covered most things. But yeah, I'll put a link in the description below where you can buy all the knives I featured in this video, and maybe comment on what you actually like as your average general day carry thing, or the one you carry to work, or whatever you use knives for, both in the UK and obviously in the US. I don't quite know what the laws are in the US. Something would tell me that you can probably get away with carrying whatever the hell you want because it's the USA, and they're like, oh yeah, America, fuck yeah, and right to bear arms and that other rubbish. So I think that's it. So what I'll do, I shall catch you in a later video.